StoryHinge, Episode 60, Stacy Brookman, Write Your Story.
And be able to get that down on paper. And when you find words for what you're feeling, it then takes those memories and puts them in the regular part of your brain where your memories can typically fade over time and they can't hurt you anymore.
Welcome to StoryHinge, where we unfold more meaning and value in everyone's personal story. At StoryHinge, we explore foundational ideas and beliefs through diverse personal stories in order to discover more meaningful paths, greater happiness, and accelerated growth in one's life. We believe everyone has a beautiful story to grow. Now here's your host, Jason Vidaurri.
Welcome to StoryHinge. Thank you all for taking time with us here today. Today we are going to be spending some time with Stacy Brookman. Now, Stacy has experience in writing, and specifically writing about your own story, and some techniques and tactics in order to do that more effectively to help you where you currently are. This one's packed with good practical tips, so enjoy. All right, here we are. Excited here today. Today we have on Stacy Brookman. Stacy, welcome to StoryHinge.
Well, good morning, good afternoon. How are you? I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad too. I guess I should let the audience know that, hey, this is the second time we're doing this because our first time, my recording didn't go very well and I didn't get your voice recorded. So this is round number 2 for us.
Okay, first one was just a practice, I guess.
Yeah, it'll be better this time. You know, I guess first thing we do here, I'd like to do is hear a little bit of your story. So I'll let you go and take us back in the past and lead about a few of those stories in your past that lead us to what you're doing today and the workaround story that you have going on.
Okay, perfect. Well, my story with what I'm doing today starts back in about 2009, 2010. I was married to someone who was a sociopath. Now, I didn't know what a sociopath was at the time, but I soon got a really lot of knowledge on that.
Wow.
So a sociopath is someone who does not have any feelings or understands the feelings of other people. They are incredibly dangerous people, and I happened to be married to one. I thought it was originally kind of quirky personality, and then over the course of the 10-year marriage, it was incredibly difficult. And the last straw was I discovered him advertising himself on Craigslist for as a sex toy for couples.
Oh.
I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna do this anymore.
Wow.
So I initiated divorce, and it was just I had realized I thought I dove into hell. It was really a very horrible experience. Lots of bad things happened, including him cutting. We were cutting the wires on my heater in my house when I was with my kids, and then calling Child Protective Services and saying the kids have no heat, stealing every single scrap of the kids' history and scrapbooks and everything. And then he would go and steal copper out of places where he worked. I mean, it was just really amazingly hard. Those are just a few of the stories. But anyway, during that really, really difficult time, I got some money from my parents for my birthday. And even as you're adult, your parents send you money sometimes. So I took that and I went to a memoir class because I enjoyed writing, and I thought this would be kind of interesting to write a memoir. And I did not realize at the time how beneficial this was going to be for me. It was really a lifesaver. I went there every Friday and wrote my stories, and we spoke our stories aloud. And I just wrote up the crazy incidents that were happening to me each week. I mean, I'm like, this is what happened this week, and I would write them up. And they absolutely loved them, although they were kind of horror stories of.
I was going to say, yeah.
Like, what? Are you kidding me? You found a bug in your car, and you went to the police barracks, and they discovered, a microphone running up your steering column, or your car was broken into. It was just crazy, crazy stories, and I didn't realize at the time there are there's a lot of study about research about the psychological benefit of writing down what happens in your life, writing down, especially the tough life stories, and writing down what happens, because as human beings, we have a huge capacity for pulling the wool over our own eyes. And I had been doing that for a long time, trying to ignore the signs that this person was very unhealthy and definitely it had mental illnesses. And so once I started in on that, and eventually got divorced. Actually, the judge said it was in the kids' best interest for me to take them and move to Texas from New York. And that's really rare. So ultimately they discovered how bad it was as well. But I started looking into, because it made me feel calmer. It made me realize my part, the part that I played. We all play a part in some of our tragedies by allowing some of this behavior to happen. And it really helped me to be clear on what I wanted and what I didn't want. And so I started looking into all of that psychology, as well as the art of life storytelling, and why was it so beneficial? And I wanted to tell everybody else going through tough times about it. And so what I did was, once I moved to Houston, Texas, I started teaching at the local community college, because I wanted so many more people to understand, even if you're not a writer, even if you never intend to publish a single thing, just writing your stories down is incredibly beneficial. And I was teaching, 15, 20 people at a time, maybe. And of course, I wanted to reach even more people. So I started a podcast, and I went online I'm at stacybrookman.com, and I have a podcast called Real Life Resilience, and it's stories of resilience from life's most difficult trauma. So I have people on my podcast that tell their own stories and how they came through very devastating circumstances, as well as resources for people who, with people who have resources to help other people going through trauma or tough life situations. And I absolutely love that. And I have some courses that are coming out later this year, but I think I'm reaching more and more people now, and it's the most fun thing I do all week. I really love helping people recover from their trauma.
Okay. That sounds real good, Stacy. I want to back you up a little bit and hear about, I guess, story writing. And you hit on that a little bit, but what is it about that makes that a better way to look at our story other than just maybe thinking about it, or perhaps maybe even talking to other people about it? What is it about the writing that makes a difference?
That is a fabulous question. Jason, what happens when we go through trauma or tough life situations? And trauma is different for everybody. It could be, just getting into a car accident. It could be, losing your job, or it could be cancer, or the loss of a child or a parent or a sibling. It could be as simple as being disappointed in something, but trauma is different for everybody. But what happens when we have trauma is those memories are stored in a different part of the brain than regular memories. And those memories are very sharp, and they hide in your brain until you are triggered and it comes forth. It's kind of like a PTSD is this type of situation where maybe you're in a crowd and you're extremely uncomfortable, or maybe somebody says one thing like, "Hey, how was your day?" And that just sets you off into anger or anxiety or something like that. That's those memories that you have that are stored in a different part of your brain, and they come back just as sharp as when they were first created. So what writing does is you have to find words for what happened. And really the best thing to do is not just what happened, but how you felt about it, the circumstances around it. And I take people through that. I have a webinar called the 4 Simple Proven Methods to Writing the Very First Chapter of Your Life Story in just 7 days. And I teach people how to capture those stories and how to write just these little scenes and be able to get that down on paper. And when you find words for what you're feeling, it then takes those memories and puts them in the regular part of your brain where your memories can typically fade over time and they can't hurt you anymore. So there, like I said, there's been a lot of studies. Dr. Pennebaker from the University of Texas at Austin, Dr. Dan Allender from the Allender Center, and I've done a lot of research through those and many, many other people. And like writing about your life can actually boost your immune system. I didn't know if you knew that, but just the simple, it's called the 2-minute miracle. They took a bunch of college students, I believe, and they said for 2 minutes a day for the next 3 days, can you just write what about something in your past or something like that? And those ones who wrote about the painful pieces of their past had better outcomes than just people who wrote, I went to the grocery store today or yesterday, etc. So writing about those tough moments in your life can actually help your brain to release those really sharp memories and put them in the place where they belong, where they can fade.
That's good. One of the things that comes to my mind as you're talking about that is how do you do that with these traumas, these tough memories? I know because sometimes we don't even want to acknowledge that they happened, let alone sit down and really write about them. Any tips on how to get that process started?
Oh, yeah. So you're right. A lot of people don't want to. In fact, some of the advice is just get over it, right? Or just, put it in the back of your mind or just move on from there. And it's kind of counterintuitive to bring it back into the front of your mind. But if you try to cram these tough memories in the back of your head, they will come back. You've just got to work through them. So yes, it might be a little anxiety producing, or it might be tough to write these out. But when you know that the outcome is going to be much, much better, and you can live a more joy-filled life after that, more authentic, it really is amazing. So what happened with me was when I went through my memoir class and I was learning about this and understanding how to write my stories, I went through these exercises to find my life theme. And I didn't realize that my life theme, I thought I was a professional woman, and I was in the midst of a divorce, but I was handling it and things like that. That couldn't been further from the truth. What I discovered was I didn't raise my hand, not in kindergarten, grade school, high school, as a young adult. I didn't ever raise my hand, hardly ever, to say that's not right, or hey, it's me over here, I have the right answer, or nothing like that. And I was surprised that was my life theme. It was kind of hidden. I had hid it from myself that I didn't raise my hand. And when I started to recognize that, I'm like, I don't like that. I'm not like that. I don't want to do that anymore. I was able to change my life theme. And so you can actually change yourself and be much more authentic person by writing your stories and getting them out, and just discovering more about yourself and being more authentic. And I absolutely love that.
I was actually just going to ask you, what's the relationship there between writing your story out and authenticity? And how do you get yourself to be honest, I guess, with yourself? Is that one of the basis of it all?
It is part of it, because what happens is we have this, persona that we want to project to the world. We want to, like I did, I wanted to project that I was a professional, confident professional woman. And in reality, inside, my little younger self was like, no, I don't deserve this promotion. I don't deserve doing this, and nobody sees me, or I don't want to be seen. And I was, taught at a young age that don't be seen and don't raise your hand. And over the course of, my young life and young adulthood, that was reinforced. And I didn't realize that. So you start to understand a little bit more about yourself. And then you're not, if you have this facade, you're always afraid that facade is going to slip. And whether you realize you have it or not, you're always afraid, and you're always saying, okay, what can I do to make sure that facade doesn't slip, or reinforce that facade? And when you get down to writing your life stories and what you really feel and what you really think about things, you're actually discovering yourself. You're uncovering what you really are all about. And that's a good thing, because there are lots of great things about you, and you discover that as well. And then you can say, you know what, I'm unapologetically me. I am, I am who I am. And it helps you in that way as well. So you're more authentic.
One thing that you also reminded me of is this concept, and I've heard it, what that is when you have these memories of this trauma, and it keeps coming back to you, and it's older than, like 18 months ago, and it keeps coming back. Is basically one of the things you can look at is that it's your own brain telling you that there's still something to learn from this.
Right.
That there's still something to, because I was thinking about how you're saying trauma, we try to bury it, but we really don't bury it, do we? It
right.
keeps popping up until we really
does.
deal with it, and then we can move on.
Mm-hmm. It does. And, one of the other things too is that when you write about your life stories, you might be able to find a new strength or a new characteristic in your life that you wouldn't have known about, or you wouldn't have developed if you hadn't told your story. And by telling your story, I'm not saying you have to publish it or publicize it to anybody or share it around. I just did with my small group, my writing group, and it was still incredibly beneficial. And I learned, you know what? I have resilience. I can be a resilient person. Yes, I've gone through this. Yes, in the past, I haven't raised my hand, but I can raise it now. It's okay for me to be seen. It's okay for me to stand up for myself and my kids.
That's good. And what would you say is the difference between, just writing yourself and, in your office or in your room versus maybe getting help with writing that, or being a part of a group like you described?
Well, I love it. And I think there's lots of great benefits in sharing your story. And the reason is this: we need a neutral person to be able to hold our story in trust. And our brains are wired for story. And when you share your story with somebody else or in a small, safe group, then you can, it gives you that ease in your mind that it's okay, I'm okay. And to have somebody just say, I am so sorry for what happened to you, or how can I help you? Or just sit there and listen and nod or give you a hug. That is so amazing. And it just helps you with that inner peace, and you're calmer, and you're not afraid to share your story anymore because someone else has sat there and listened to you.
I've been kind of in this place of looking at my own story a lot more these past several years, and so I agree with a lot of what you're sharing here. I guess for you personally, as you went through this and started writing more, could you take us through maybe a story or two, like what was that like for you, and how did you change from what you were back then to something maybe more where you're at now?
So back then, when you're under incredible stress, your brain is in a fog, and that was definitely me. My brain was in a fog, and especially with a sociopath or a narcissistic person, they are gaslighting you, which means they try to make you think you're the crazy person, and some of the times, I would say, well, this is what happened. And he would say, no, it didn't. And I'm like, I thought it happened. And so I started writing just little sentences down of things that happened. And so at the time, so I knew when I wrote it down, it actually happened. So I couldn't doubt what I wrote, right? Because I wrote it down. And then I would take those each week and say, okay, what's the story around this? Why in the world did this happen? What's going on here? What do I feel about it? And then I was able to be more confident. Okay, that did really happen. I know it happened. I wrote it down at the time, and then I'm writing more about it. And then it was just starting those into a story. So what I take people through is, okay, you have that kernel of something that happened to you, let's say this week or last week or 2 years ago, it doesn't matter. Find that one moment in time, that minute or those seconds or that hour that represents the crux of that. So it could be, maybe in your grandmother's kitchen, and a couple of years ago. And then I take them through a series of exercises. What did you smell? What did you hear? What did you taste? What did you feel or touch? And then what were your feelings? So all of the senses plus what were you feeling at the time. And when you start doing that, you don't have to write in sentences or paragraphs or, maybe it's just bullet points, but you start to recall some of those really important details. And I find that the more of those little details that you write down, the more you discover, the more you remember about that. And then the next step would be, after you write down some of those details, would be to free write. And when you free write, you put your pencil on paper or you put your hands on the keyboard, either way, and you start writing and you do not stop. You set a timer for 10 minutes, 5 minutes if you can't go any longer, but go up to 45 minutes if you can, just simply writing. No punctuation, don't worry about capitalization, commas, nothing, like no grammar, just write. Now, when you start doing that, often you're going to come across a time when you're actually pretty early on, I can't think of anything to write. I don't know what to write about. And then you're going to simply write, I don't know what to write about. Write whatever comes in your mind. And the reason is this. When you start free writing, your brain's going to put up all kinds of barriers. And it's going to say, I don't know what to write, I can't think, I have writer's block, etc. But when you continue writing, even if you say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you start writing, the lyrics to a song, or I don't know what I'm writing about, eventually your brain is going to stop giving you that junk and it's going to start getting to those golden nuggets. And that's where you have the aha. This is what really happened. And you get those insights from your subconscious that your conscious is trying to put up barriers to. And you just continue writing. One of those things I did, I wrote almost without editing this poem that I have called I Should Have Raised My Hand when I discovered that. And then we did a free write. And I, started writing junk. But then after that, it came out, okay, when I was 5, this happened. When I was 7, this happened. When I was 23, this happened. And it came out to be an awesome poem that I have. It's been published in a book now. Last year, it was published in the Story Circle Network anthology. And it was very insightful for myself. Oh, yeah, that was my life theme. And it's been very helpful for other people as well.
Really good. I jotted a few notes down here as you're sharing some different things on writing. You talked about, going into details, talking about what you feel, the circumstances around that, and then this free writing as another tool. Do you have any other tools in the actual writing that would be helpful for someone?
Yeah, once you do that, the very first thing you should do is start a list of milestones in your life. And you could start with I was born, and then just list 15 to 20 milestones that you've had in your life, and then make a second list of desires you've had in your life, like the desire to get a college degree, or the desire to be married, or desire to go to a different country. What are some of those desires? And then a third list is things that have pulled you in different directions, like money versus spirituality, or career versus family, any of those. If you can make some of those lists, and then check across lists and say, okay, is there a theme here? What's going across 3 or even 2 of those lists? And when you do that, you start to see, okay, here's maybe where I need to start writing a story. And that's where you would do, ask the questions, the census questions. And then after that, you would, free write, and then put it away and pick up another milestone and write on that. So the more of those little milestones that you write a little scene about, the better. The more your story starts coming to you, the better you're going to get. And then after you have a lot of free writes, then you can craft that into a beautiful story. I got to tell you, even Hemingway did not have great first drafts. Nobody does. Nobody has beautiful words coming out of their brain and onto paper that are publishable. So it's okay to write junk. But the thing is, if you don't get that junk out of your head, you're not going to have that foundation to craft into a beautiful story. So you want as much of that foundation as you can, and then you can take that free write and craft those into beautiful stories.
I like that. I know you've touched on this a little bit of your work and your website. Why don't you bring us up to speed a little bit more on your work that you're doing and where people can find you and what you offer as part of the work that you're doing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I absolutely love teaching people how to recover from their life stories, traumatic life stories. I love teaching people how to be more resilient. So I do that over at stacybrookman.com. And, a lot of the people that come to my website and listen to the podcast, you can click on podcast on the blog, are women often who are emotionally abused. And, you don't normally think of yourself as abused, but actually I have one of those checklists that say, okay, is it time to leave your man? But it's, finding, understanding whether or not you are abused or if you are in an emotionally difficult relationship, and then helping them discover how to write their life story and how to recover from those tough life situations. So yes, I do that over at stacybrookman.com. I mentioned the podcast, which I love doing. That's on iTunes, Real Life Resilience. And then I have the webinar that I do every single month, and it's the 4 simple proven methods of writing the very first chapter of your life story in just 7 days. So if, once you listen to the webinar, it's free. Within 7 days, you will absolutely have the first chapter of your life story. Okay. And that's really fun.
And to get a hold of you, people should go to your website, same website as well?
Yeah, same website, stacybrookman.com, or you can email me at Stacy, STACY, at stacybrookman.com. And of course, I'm on Facebook and Pinterest. Love Pinterest. Twitter, not so much Instagram, but mostly Facebook and Pinterest.
Okay, great. For someone kind of out there, some of my audience is, people in their mid-30s probably looking around and saying, well, you know what, things are okay. Maybe there's some trauma earlier in their life, maybe not, but they're kind of looking and saying, well, I don't know, I don't feel quite fulfilled. Feels like something's missing.
Yeah.
Outside of your writing your life story and that, would you have any other advice for someone in that situation?
I would say mindfulness is a huge part of knowing yourself and having that peace within. And that's one of the things I love to do. I have this app on my phone called Headspace. Have you heard of that?
No, I don't think I have heard that one yet.
I love that app, and it guides you through being more mindful. And so when you kind of combine that with writing, it is really amazing because, I would say probably nobody has had a perfect life. Almost everybody can write something about what their past is and understand, that they can write about those past tough life situations, even if it was like their dog died. I mean, like I said, trauma is different for every person. Write about that stuff and discover the more authentic you and discover your life story. And then it's much easier to step into the person you were meant to be.
That's beautiful. I want to encourage everybody out there to take those steps. That's what we're about, is making things better and improving our situation and for the life of those around us as well. So, Stacy, I want to thank you for the time again here on StoryHinge and be able to talk with you again about these very important topics. And something I found for myself too in these past several years is looking at myself, my own story, and the power of that as we review it, and it does get better.
Absolutely, Jason. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're doing what you do out into the world, and keep on doing well.
All right. Thank you for sharing time with us again. Thank you, Stacy, for spending time with us here on StoryHinge. Again, if you want to connect with Stacy, you can reach her at stacybrookman.com, and there'll be links for that. I guess just in closing here, a couple thoughts on our own personal story and what we can do with it. I think we're starting to get some real practical things to do, and I'll just talk about them again. And this is from Stacy, and I think from some of the other guests I've been listening to as well. But in terms of looking at your own story, one of the big tools is writing about it, writing your own personal story. And how do you go about that? I think there's several things: listing milestones, those big events in your life, maybe listing some of your desires that you've had along the way, and perhaps some of those changes, those shifts in your life, or those hinge moments where things seem to change. And then a couple places I've heard, and I think that's really fundamental, is not just writing the events as if they just happened, but also digging into the what you felt, your feelings, and the details about those events. I think that's really where you start, things start manifesting in terms of the real meaning of that, how you're able to process those memories, those events better. I also liked something that Stacy brought up in this one is that that of the free write, where you just write without punctuation, without stopping, just write for a certain amount of time. And that really helps get out certain things that otherwise you'd edit out, various ways editing out, either because you don't really want to talk about them or because you get distracted with right punctuation, right, saying things the right way. But the free write, I think, is a valuable tool. I think that's a few things to think about as you go forth this week. I think I'd also like to give a little update on things and the podcast itself. And, as one of my efforts I want to do better in 2018 here is to basically be more open about what's going on the podcast and where I'm at, and maybe a little bit more about me personally. And I've shared some of that, but I want to do a better effort here in 2018. So, it's, I'm overall really pleased with the podcast and the audience and where it's at. I guess in terms of growth, it seemed to have peaked more in the late summer in terms of audience numbers, download numbers, and it's kind of tapered off since then and kind of stagnated. And I'm not super concerned about that, other than I think there's I guess I like to think there's value in some of the guests that have come on and what they share, and that it could help more people out there if we could get it out to more people. So that's the main thing that I invite you to, if you're finding value in this, to share with others that you may think may be beneficial for them. I feel like I've gotten somewhat better in the product I'm delivering out to you. I think there's a lot of improvement to be made still, and I invite that feedback from you. Both. Actually, it's fine to hear positive and negative. It's probably more constructive to hear negative, to hear what you like and specifically what you don't like about the podcast. So as I invite you to share it with others, if you find value in it, I guess for those of you that are like, I don't find that much value, then I would invite you to go and give me some feedback. I totally welcome that, to whatever degree you'd like to share that. And the best way to reach me is either from the website, StoryHinge.com. There's a contact page there that you can send me an email, or you can just send it directly to Jason@StoryHinge.com. That'll come right to me. And so I invite you to do that. So in season 2, we're going to continue to dive deeper into story. And, I guess I should say, where does that come from? Why dive into story? Why do more with story? I think story is so powerful for us in our lives and how we learn, that stories have a way of engaging our brains and ourselves in ways that other things don't have that power. And for the most part, I think a lot of us, myself included, is, in terms of story in my life, it's more of just a consumer for entertainment, or it has been. And as I've explored this first season and hearing other people's stories and learning more about story on my own researches, I think we're missing an opportunity to improve story in our life overall, and figuring out better ways to utilize stories to improve our current situation, or to help us along our journey. And so that's where a lot of that is coming from. And so, like I said, we're diving deeper into story, be spending more time with story creators in their different forms and learning what makes better story. And really an offshoot on that is going to be the continual exploration into personal story and what we can do with that. So that's kind of where we're at. I feel like I'm talked enough here now, and but I'm really excited to see where this is going. So you guys have a great week. And next week, we're going to continue to dive into the personal story and what we can do with that. Looking forward to that. All right, guys. Later.
Thank you for sharing with us at StoryHinge. We hope this time together has added more goodness to your journey. Until next time, onward and upward, and may your own story continue to grow more beautiful.